So, Deacon, it's been about 2 years since we've been hitting different countries repeatedly, maybe 3-4 months at a time. We've been to South America, Central America, you've seen the Caribbean. How does Mexico City compare to the spirit that you've seen in other countries when you've broken ground?
We were talking about that, the captains and I, during the week, and that we've been here. And I think we get kind of spoiled sometimes when we go to some of these places. Going back to when we went to Cuba years back, and the reception that we got there, I think it kind of showed us the potential, the hunger, the thirst that our people are going to have wherever the word has not been preached to them as of yet. And from everywhere we've been, I would say, with maybe the exception of Panama being a little more lukewarm in the reception, it's been pretty profound.
Deacon, it's llantas.
You say he squints his eyes too.
I don't know. First they were llantas, now they're not. They could be whatever they want to be.
I never called them niggas. Well, I did call them niggas one time. Gomas? Llantas? What is it?
It was thrown off his tongue this Puerto Rican thing.
Oh yeah?
Llantas.
Speak to us.
Everybody was talking about gomas, he was talking about llantas. I don't know.
Oh yeah, that's right. Out at the table, right?
This morning.
Yeah, this morning, exactly.
It's like, no, they're not gomas, they're llantas.
He said they're called llantas, not gomas.
Just the king of just run when you see him coming. No need for rushing. The bus is gunning. Yeah, praise the Lord, can't you see our kingdom is near? Knock. See salvation is here. The word is on. See the message is clear. By your need when the Savior appears. By your need when the Savior appears. Not so we feel. When the Savior comes, there will be no problems in the New Jerusalem.
I was Cornelius.
Shalom, shalom.
Issacharite, the in-house Issacharite we had. We had a couple questions for you, sir, in terms of your childhood. You were born in Mexico, correct?
That's correct. I was born in, it's a place, it's too hard to pronounce, but I'll pronounce it, Zapotlanejo, Jalisco. It's roughly about 30 minutes away from Guadalajara. I believe Guadalajara is the third or second biggest city in Mexico. I was born in Mexico. I was about 5 years old when my parents decided to move to the United States, chasing the American dream like everybody. But like it says in Lamentations, right? This is not our rest, seeking for a country that can do nothing for us. Experienced racism, of course, violence from the police and all the other nations. But other than that, my upbringing was pretty much, I don't want to say normal, but I went to elementary school, to junior high, high school. I didn't do no college. I did a trade. I did just a 4-year electrical trade. So that's pretty much my upbringing from Mexico on to Babylon the Great.
¿No más con dos, verdad? They talk about Issachar, how they're hard workers.
Oye, el mexicano es bien trabajador, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Porque somos bien puestos para el trabajo.
Sí.
¿Sabes que la Biblia nos compara como asnos, como burros? Bájale. Al mexicano. La Biblia habla del mexicano.
Sí. ¿Dónde vienen?
De los Estados Unidos. Vamos a predicar la palabra.
¿Qué religión?
Predicamos los mandamientos de Dios, no religión.
No.
Porque Cristo no predicó ninguna religión, ¿verdad? Predicó mandamientos.
I know that, being from the West Coast, there is a division between so-called Mexicans and so-called African Americans.
Right.
When you were younger and you were in the world, what kind of experiences did you see or were a part of to kind of see that divide, and how did it affect you coming to the church?
Well, it did affect me because I didn't know who I was biblically, right? First and foremost. So if I didn't know who I was, there's no way I'm going to know who my so-called African Americans, brothers and sisters were. So the being ignorant was the number one cause of my racism. I'm going to say I was racist, right? But me personally, what I believe, like the East Coast and the West Coast is two different areas. In the East Coast, blacks and Hispanics, they kind of mix in together and grow up together. I personally didn't have that upbringing with Southern Kingdom. I just grew up nothing with Northern Kingdom. And at the age of like 13, 14, my parents moved to a place called Victorville, California. Nothing but Edomites there. So my upbringing, it was very, very few Southern Kingdom. Like I'm talking like very few. 90% Edomites and like 10% Northern Kingdom. So I didn't really interact a lot with Southern Kingdom. So now in this truth, it's like I'm getting to know, their cultures, certain differences between Hispanics and so-called blacks. So I'm barely getting to know the other tribes. And it's, it's been good. It's been good.
How do you see that rift between Latinos and so-called blacks affecting people that are still in the world and maybe preventing any repentance?
Well, ignorance is a bliss, right? They say. Not, like I said, I'll go back to what I said at the beginning. Not knowing who we are is really the buffer. If we knew who we both were, I don't think there's going to be any separation whatsoever. Because at the end of the day, we know that who's behind the separation. We know who's behind the name playing and the name calling. All the derogatory names and terms that we're known by, it was just created just to even further divide and conquer us. If we just know that aspect of it, because think about it, a lot of people that we speak to, they say, oh, I'm woke. They use that word, that they're woke. They're woke to a certain extent, but they're still not willing to do that unity, to come even further closer and be completely woke. Like our revolutionaries, our revolutionary brothers and sisters, Southern Kingdom and Northern Kingdom, they were woke to a certain extent. But what's lacking, the understanding of who we were and combining the scriptures, combining the commandments. So the ignorance is what's going to keep us separated.
You mentioned like derogatory names. Like what have you seen in terms of derogatory names in the two tribes?
Deuteronomy 28:32, right? It's bywords and proverbs. Southern Kingdom, there's too many to list. They got llantas, they got mayates, they got nigga, they got all kinds of derogatory names. Hispanics, what do they call Hispanics? Spics, wetbacks, mojados, border hoppers. I mean, there's these derogatory names that, we're known by. That's biblical. Isaiah 65:15. You will, how does it go? It says you will leave your name for a curse to my chosen.
Lo que se había perdido.
So, sabemos que el Hijo del Hombre es Jesucristo. La Biblia dice que Él vino a salvar a lo que?
A lo que se había perdido.
A lo que se había perdido. Obviamente, los que dicen que son judíos y no lo son, están en la tierra, ¿verdad? Haciendo el rollo o el papel de ser los judíos y no lo son. La Biblia te está diciendo que los israelitas iban a ser perdidos. ¿Perdidos cómo? No iban a saber su verdadera herencia, no iban a saber su lenguaje, ¿ok? Su verdadera nacionalidad, el nombre que le puso Dios a su gente, los israelitas, iban a ser perdidos. ¿Cómo sabemos? Ahora vea Mateo 15 y 24.
Mateo capítulo 15, versículo 24. Él respondiendo dijo.
So, Jesucristo respondiendo dijo ¿qué?
No soy enviado, sino a las ovejas perdidas de la casa de Israel.
So, ahí está aclarando quién está perdido. ¿Quién está perdido? Léelo de nuevo.
Él respondió y dijo, no soy enviado, sino a las ovejas perdidas de la casa de Israel.
Nosotros, los ser llamados negros y latinos nativoamericanos, somos perdidos. ¿Por qué? Porque nos llamamos mexicanos, dominicanos, puertorriqueños, cubanos, colombianos. Todos esos nombres que nos pusieron en esclavitud, menos el nombre que nos puso Dios, Israel. ¿Entiende? So, nosotros somos la oveja perdida de la casa de Israel.
Sí, y perderás la heredad.
La heredad.
iba a perder la heredad de las 12 tribus de Israel, la gerencia que Dios dio a nosotros, las leyes, los mandamientos, nuestras costumbres, ¿ok? Como estamos supuestos a vivir, ¿ok? Esa es la otra señal que tú sabes que la identidad está perdida y también en la manera que estamos supuestos a vivir. Estamos viviendo en pecado hasta hoy en día. Pero lo que dicen que son judíos, pero no lo son, ¿ok? Los mal llamados judíos hoy en día, ¿ok? Ellos dicen que ellos están siguiendo todo. No, si tú estudias, tú vas a ver que ellos no hacen todo como dice la Biblia. Ellos tratan a buscar maneras como ellos pueden aparecer como ellos están guardando los mandamientos, pero no. Un ejemplo es que no estamos supuestos a cocinar en el día de reposo, el sábado, ¿ok? Pero ellos tienen una regla que si no es fuego, si es un plato eléctrico, como una estufa eléctrica,
o microondas.
Sí, o microondas, que eso está cierto, ¿ok? Pero no es. O ellos tienen reglas en su ley, porque no es la ley de Moisés en la Biblia, que si es alguien de otras naciones, que se llama en inglés Shabbos Goy, se dice, un Shabbos Goy, es el palabra que yo uso, y es alguien para el Shabbat, puede ser varias cosas, solamente que ellos no lo paguen en ese día, ¿ok? So ellos buscan gente de otras naciones que puede ser varias cosas para them. Okay? Oh, yo no puedo oprimir este botón. Tú me puedes oprimir este botón para mí. Tú puedes hacer esto y lo otro, ¿ok? Nosotros somos sabios en la Biblia, ¿ok? Y sabemos las diferencias que ellos hacen y lo que la Biblia dice.
Ellos piensan como que estos son ideas o estos son cosas que son... que son pensamientos de nosotros, pero no es así. Ok, lee aquí el 4 y 1 y vamos a brincar.
Este es el libro de Baruch, capítulo 4, versículo 1. Este es el libro de los mandamientos de Dios.
Este libro de donde nosotros estamos leyendo es el libro de los mandamientos, no las ideas o no los ideales o no los sugestiones de Dios. Esto es de un libro de mandamientos que le pertenece a Dios. ¿Lee?
Y la ley que permanece para siempre. Todos los que la guardan vendrán a la vida.
A la vida eterna que Cristo nos prometió.
Pero tal que los deje morirá.
Van a estar en una situación que no va a haber vida, no va a haber éxito, no va a haber nada. Alright, solamente es oscuridad y muerte. Brinca al 4, porque va a regresar a lo que usted estaba diciendo acerca de la descontinuación de nuestra herencia.
Versículo 4. Oh Israel, feliz somos, porque cosas que son agradables a Dios se dan a conocer ante nosotros.
Esta Biblia es una fuente de sabiduría. Okay, y nosotros, como Israel, deberíamos estar alegres que tenemos este libro para nosotros saber cómo navegar en el mundo.
Ten buen ánimo, pueblo mío, el memorial de Israel.
Ahora, mucha gente va a decir, ¿pero quién es Israel? Israel son la gente que están allá. No, espérate. Porque el versículo te va a dar la identificación en quién es Israel hoy día. Lee.
Ustedes fueron vendidos a las naciones.
La gente que está en Israel ahora mismo no son la gente que fueron vendidos en el mundo entero. Cuando tú lees Santiago 1 y 1, que habla de los esparcidos de Israel, esa gente no fueron esparcidos, ellos están allá ahora mismo. Toda esa gente falsa están en nuestro país diciendo que ellos son la gente de Dios.
No para su destrucción.
Nosotros, lo que es el moreno, el latino y el indio nativo, nosotros fuimos vendidos. ¿Ok? Los que dicen que son los negros en África, no africanos, porque hay una diferencia, fueron vendidos acá. Luego, lo que dicen que son latinos fueron vendidos en el mundo entero, allá, en Europa y todos diferentes lugares, indios nativos y todo eso. ¿Okay? Nosotros fuimos vendidos. Nosotros somos los esclavos. ¿Lee?
No para su destrucción.
So, Dios dejó que esto pasara a nosotros, no para destruirnos, pero sino que.
Pero porque ustedes movieron a Dios a la ira.
¿Cómo nosotros movimos a Dios a la ira? Lo movimos porque nosotros hacemos brujería, santería, espiritismo. Nosotros todavía estamos orándole al Mar Verde, a la Guadalupe y todas estas cosas. Eso no son, tú no vas a encontrar esos santos, esos dioses.
En noviazgo, no en matrimonio,
Right,
no guardando el sábado.
Mucho más que eso.
No guardando la ley de dieta.
Comiendo carnitas y cosas así, langosta
Cochinita.
y cochinita pibil, ¿ok? Todas estas cosas nos pasó a nosotros porque rompimos los mandamientos de Dios. ¿Lee?
Estos reyes.
En los días de esos reyes, del tiempo de los gentiles, como leemos en San Lucas, ¿ok? Como estamos leyendo de la blasfemia, como leemos en Job también, ¿ok? En esos días, ¿qué?
Y en los días de estos reyes, el Dios del cielo levantará un reino que no será jamás destruido.
Levantará su pueblo. Vas a salvarlo de su pecado. Y en ese poder de arrepentir y guardar esos mandamientos, no como gentil en su mentalidad, pero como un israelita de las 12 tribus de Israel,
ni será el reino dejado a otro pueblo.
Nunca más vamos a estar engañados, engaños, en cautiverio, abajo de otros países y otros reinos.
Desmenuzará y consumirá a todos estos reinos.
Sigue.
Pero él permanecerá para siempre.
Para siempre, para siempre, para siempre.
One thing that I thought was interesting when we were on the TV show was you mentioned a story from was it a coworker?
Some guy that used to work for me, yes. His name is Efrain Flores.
So, we talked about Issachar not knowing who they are, right? And that causing a lot of division. But your coworker mentioned a story about how he likened himself to a donkey in that process, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain that and kind of see how?
Right. So years ago, right, this guy used to work for me, and as of recent, I started using him again for some more work that I need help every once in a while. And I broke down, Genesis 49:14 to him about how we so-called Mexicans were actually Israelites from the tribe of Issachar. And he says, do say, tell me more. So as I started getting deeper and deeper, I broke down the ass, the donkey, and he got really quiet. And I seen like a change in his face. Like, I was like, whoa, like maybe I hit a button or something. Like maybe he got offended because I compared him to an ass, right? And then he's like, you know what? When you said that, it reminded me of my childhood. I said, do say. And he told me that when he was young, he used to take his donkey. He's from Toluca. It's not too far. It's like 3 hours from here. He said that when he was young, he used to saddle up his donkey, put a pick and a shovel and a digging bar and other stuff, right? Other loads, right? Like the donkey is used for heavy loads. And he said that when he used to walk the donkey, it used to make a lot of noise, clink, clink, tools and material hitting. And he says that once he got to the United States, and then he started working construction, he used to put on a tool belt and the hammer hitting the other rest of the tools, that he put it on, and he said that same noise took him back to his childhood memories. And then he says that reminded him like he was the donkey with the load. So I was just like, wow. I was taken back because I was like, wow. He didn't connect it spiritually. I connected it spiritually. He just connected it like, oh crap, like I was working hard labor like an animal, but I was able to connect it spiritually. And that's another way. Maybe he's not gonna get it, but sharing this story that happened to him, this might be an eye-opener for many other Issacharites. Not only Issachar, all Northern Kingdom, all Central America, they're all hardworking, right? But when it comes to the so-called Mexican, it's the hardest working human being on planet Earth, right?
So being formerly born in Mexico, now part of Tijuana, one of the first school in Mexico. In Mexico City, as an Issacharite, what do you have to say to your tribe as we close up the service?
Get the hell out of the churches. You've seen no change since 1519, right? You were worshiping a rock before, Tonanzi. Now you're still worshiping a rock. There's more church, and I say this all the time. They build more churches every year. Prostitution is still rampant. Drug addiction is still going rampant. The cartels are still killing people. People are still disappearing. What is that telling us? That the damn satanic Christian, Catholic, Mormon, Jehovah's Witness churches aren't ever going to do a positive change for us. The answer is not in the churches. The answer is in knowing who the hell you are biblically, repenting from your evil ways, keeping the commandments of God, and the faith in Jesus Christ, the black Messiah that the Bible speaks about. That's the message.
All of this Christ, all of this Christ, get it right or get it right. All of this, yeah, all of this Christ. Purple and gold like spiral. Remember the most I shot down Cairo. Make your election show. All of this Christ, get it right. Yeah, all of this, yeah. All of this Christ, all of this, yeah. Hold on.
Nabio.
Yes, sir.
Tijuana. So now we're in Mexico City, your stomping ground. How did it feel to break ground in Mexico City, a city deeper into the country that you're now placed in?
Man, I remember a while ago, I spoke to, I had spoken to the bishop. I said, hey, one day, I'd like to, start in, Mexico and work for us to work our way down into Central America and eventually South America. And that conversation happened maybe like 4 or 5 years ago. So it's like, whoa, we're here now. And, it's exciting. It's a big deal because it feels like we're moving a lot faster than what I thought that we were gonna be as far as Northern Kingdom is concerned. So it's very eye-opening, and I feel proud, to be here, seeing where we're at, not only as Northern Kingdom but individually in the teams that we have, the different teams that we have for Northern Kingdom, the core team, and IT, things of that nature. So, feels good to be here.
Aquí nos dice el verbo, que es Cristo, era con Dios, y el verbo era Dios. ¿Por qué dice esto? Dame salmos.
No te vayas.
No, tenemos que ir, porque aquí Dios es plural. Dios no nomás es uno, hay varios dioses.
No es uno.
No lo es. Escuche lo que dice acá. No se vaya. La palabra de Dios no falla, ¿verdad?
No falla.
Ok, escucha lo que dice. Lee. Salmos capítulo 82, versículo 1. Lee. Dios está en la reunión de los dioses. Espérate. Dice Dios. ¿Está en qué? En la reunión de los dioses. Hermana, ¿eso es plural?
Sí,
¿Quiere decir? No, hermano.
Un contexto de un versículo.
No, estamos en varios, léelo otra vez. No se me corra.
Dios te bendiga. No, Dios es uno nada más. Dios Padre, Hijo y Espíritu Santo, una persona. Los tres en uno. Dios te bendiga.
Shalom familia, estamos aquí en la Ciudad de México y aquí en la tienda allá ellos están vendiendo puerco, taquitos, carnitas, cosas así que son de puerco, y sabemos en la Biblia, en Levítico 11 y 7 dice que no podemos comer cerdo, pero la cosa es, cuando usted está en un país que económicamente están bien bajo, está sufriendo económicamente, ellos tienen que comer por puerco porque es bien barato. Eso es lo que está pasando en la mayoría de los países. Es lo mismo en Cuba también. En Cuba ellos comen a caballo porque no hay bastante carne de vaca. Entonces ahora mismo es como una, no sé cómo se dice, delicacy, pero la gente está enfocando en puerco más que vaca. Pero en la Biblia dice que tenemos que comer vaca, tenemos que comer pescado, pollo, cosas que son limpios. Pero aquí es bien popular de comer puerco.
¿Quiénes son los que creen en él, verdad? ¿Quiénes son los mayas? Una pregunta. Los falsos judíos en Israel, ellos no creen en Cristo. Gracias. ¿Cómo es que todo aquel que cree en él, ellos no creen en Cristo? ¿Cómo es que ese versículo incluye a todo si hay gente en el planeta que no cree en Cristo? ¿Saben lo que dicen ellos? Dicen que Cristo se está quemando en la mierda de animales, en excremento humano. ¿Ustedes creen que Cristo se está quemando en excremento humano? Él no sabe la Biblia. ¿Sabe? Así es. Who's reading?
Yo no sé la Biblia.
Deuteronomio 19, 14.
Yo la leo.
Deuteronomio 19, where it says like 14, remove the
Por eso no me acerco a ninguna religión.
Escucha, hermano. Vamos a comprobar que lo que él está diciendo es una mentira y es un ignorante. ¿Sabe lo que es ignorante? Alguien que no sabe la verdad. Les estamos diciendo que el mexicano es alguien muy especial. Y este hermano se ofende porque le decimos que él es un rey, que ustedes son princesas, que el mundo fue hecho para estar llamado mexicano. Así es. ¿Se ofende mi pueblo por eso? Léeme eso. Deuteronomio capítulo 19, versículo 14. En la heredad que vos poseías en la tierra que Jehová tu Dios te da. En México es la heredad del mexicano, ¿verdad? Está llamado mexicano, ¿verdad? Sigue leyendo. No reducirás los límites de la propiedad de tu prójimo. ¿Quién nos robó la tierra? ¿Quién nos robó la tierra?
Los españoles, señor.
No, ellos saben. Pero ¿qué dice Dios? Lees una vez más. En la heredad que posees en la tierra que Jehová tu Dios te da, no reducirás los límites de la propiedad de tu prójimo. Pero este hombre dice que todo aquel. Entonces, si quieren la salvación, que nos regresen lo que nos han robado. ¿Y sabe con qué comienza? Con la identidad bíblica de ustedes. ¿Quién son ustedes en la Biblia? Es lo que quiere. ¿Quién quiere el reino de los cielos?
Todos.
Okay.
Todos queremos el reino de los cielos.
Pero no es para todos.
Así es.
Es para sus hijos.
¿Qué aprendiste hoy del color de Cristo?
Que él es moreno.
¿Quién?
Jesucristo es moreno.
¿Según qué?
La Biblia.
¿Dónde?
Apocalipsis, en el libro de Apocalipsis.
¿Nunca has escuchado eso?
He escudriñado la palabra, pero no había puesto atención en esa cita bíblica.
Entonces la imagen que tiene en la iglesia es mentira, es verdad.
Bueno, es mentira, todo eso es mentira, sobre todo los dioses, sobre todo los ídolos. México es un pueblo muy idólatra, entonces se inclinan más a ver, a adorar a ciertas imágenes, porque ciertamente no conocen a un Dios vivo y verdadero. Pero cuando uno comienza a escudriñar realmente la palabra, se comienza a dar cuenta toda la mentira y todo el engaño de lo que los papas y del gobierno nos quieren imponer.
Entonces lo que estamos enseñando es algo bueno para la comunidad.
Muy bueno.
¿Muy bueno?
Muy bueno.
Ok, gracias, Angélica.
No, es que ¿qué era él? ¿Qué era él?
Japonés.
Standing ovation.
Why are we here?
Hey, when you go out to camp every day and you out and doing camp 6 hours, you need some water. And water just doesn't fall out of the sky. So we're here at Walmart to get water. Look at the cart. Look at the cart. You got 15 Jews doing camp 5 hours a day, radio shows every day for a week. You need water, you need Gatorade. You know what I'm saying?
Así es.
But here in Mexico City, I think it's just it was a little underwhelming at first, but when looking at the body of work of what we've seen this week so far, to me it's still a steady hunger that's there, and I think there's a spirit when you come to these places where these cities are a little more modern. where they're fed a little bit more by still the breast of Babylon, even if it's not the United States, just that Americanism is everywhere, which I think is what impacts what we've seen here. We're used to like the bigger, huge crowds when we go to these places and we break ground. And I think we had a steady flow of traffic, and there's definitely, 22 million people in the city everywhere we've been. And they have been interested and they have been intrigued. But I would say initially it felt a little underwhelming, but what I saw was a consistent flow of people that still have questions, that still have curiosity. But I think by extension, that has to do more with just the conditions that they're in. And that just ultimately goes back to us being able to be adept at dividing the word. And we're not always going to be able to bang on poverty and things like that to try to get to certain people. We'll have to address it through other areas to try to break through to them. Some of that's going to happen by recon. Some of that's going to happen by once we have the boots on the ground, we gauge the temperature of the environment that we're in, and we try to address it from that angle. And I think you'll be able to kind of get more people receptive. But I feel like there's been good reception. We had the one brother today that we saw wanted to jump in and hand out flyers. We've collected numbers and information. We've also done the programs where we've gotten a lot of engagement. I think in that front, it seems like it's been more than when we've gone other places. There were people giving comments on their streams, and surprisingly, it wasn't really questions, unless they filtered them out, it wasn't really questions that were contrary, trying to say that, we're lying and it's blasphemy. They actually were curious about what we were showing, what we were teaching, and they wanted to know more about it. So I think overall it's been pretty positive. It's just, it wasn't the free fall. If I compared it to like a roller coaster, it wasn't the free fall, but it's still been pretty powerful is what we've been doing.
So that's where evolution, things like that fall into play. They're theorizing of depths of the ocean, and that's oppositions. We go with what we know, right? Them trying to say that it's heliocentric, the universe, but the Bible tells us it's earth-centric, like I said, right? That's oppositions. So when it opposes what the Bible says, you got to drop it. You can't go with that. But when it's like you compare it with the scripture, right? When they say the moon is in Earth's atmosphere, right? That's an opposition of science, falsely so-called.
So it's interesting, Kat, because we've been to Ecuador. We got soldiers out there. We got Valiente in Peru. We've got men here in Mexico City. You have a school that you're trying to build internationally in Tijuana. What's your perspective on maybe the difference of building up men in the States and then seeing how you might have to take a different or the same approach, building up men in these international countries? Anything there that's for us to know?
I will say the spirits are different, West Coast side and internationally. Me coming from New York, I learned quickly that people can get very offended with the New York attitude. And what I learned the most is to kind of be a little more compassionate, but not to the point where I'm letting things slide and allowing any type of corrosion happening to any of the core values that IUIC upholds. Number one, the commandments, and two, the expectation that we all have for each of the men that are in IUIC. A lot of listening, a lot of patience, wisdom, and understanding. Those are the three things that I always pray for. But now the prayers have evolved from just asking for those three aspects, and then instead of asking for it, but actually praying to be able to apply when those aspects are most needed. And that's what I've learned the most as far as dealing with the people that are in Tijuana and any other international place that we have.
Mm-hmm. Scripture says the brother is born for adversity, right? So most of us in this room know, but maybe everybody else doesn't know, but you have a long relationship with Deacon Yash. How does having a brother in arms for a long time help not only to build a bond of unity amongst the teams, but to be able to bear each other's burdens when holding up, all these trips and being a leader on these different trips? Hopefully, as a young man or as any of the other men that are sitting in this room, the time that we war together, eventually, years after, multiple wars, we'll be able to have those same men we call brothers in the same way that maybe you and Deacon have that relationship. Is there anything that is exciting or that you would want to relay to all the men and when you go to war together that long?
What Deacon Joshua and I continue to have is respect, and it's not a respect of persons. That respect obviously came from way in the beginning. Me, for me, it's a level of admiration that I hold for Deacon. He went from being a worldly friend to now being a solid, from being a worldly friend to a brother in the world, and then now a solid official brother here now, and now my deacon, as far as us in the truth and in the ranks of IUIC. But that level of respect has always evolved from the 25 plus years that we know each other now. But aside from all of that, the foundation of our brotherhood is that Bible. You know what I mean? And there's nothing that can ever change that. You know what I mean? The foundation that we hold together as brothers is biblical based. We have a mutual understanding. But for me, I feel that I want to make sure that nothing's misunderstood. As far as what is expected of me as a captain, and what leadership all expects from him as a deacon. So I want to make sure that I'm coming correct at all times. But yeah, that the foundation will always be biblical. And my advice to brothers that are in younger relationships, as long as you have that Bible as in the forefront of your brotherhood relationship, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. Just make sure that you continue to uphold the laws that are in the biblical pages that we read on a daily basis, and you'll have long-lasting brotherhood.
Going back to that conversation with the bishop, that I want to start in top of Mexico. I want to conquer towns in South America, right? Fast forward today, like you mentioned, you're an IOIC want to know. We're in Mexico City right now. What is the vision you have for conquering Mexico?
Man, my goal or my dream really would be to hit Afro-Mexican states. All right.
Tell us where those are,
yes.
The history behind it.
Yeah. I would love to go to Oaxaca. That's further south from Mexico City. It's like, I forget how many hours, maybe like 5+ hours from here. Guerrero, Jalisco, Guadalajara, and ultimately be able to, once TJ is established, once TJ has a couple captains on deck, I'd like to move further south, closer to Oaxaca or in Oaxaca, and be able to start traveling back and forth into Central America. That's if the Lord wills, that's where I would like to be.
Anything that you want to recap about this trip that was important to you that you experienced, or anything special to the tribe of Issachar that you're trying to build up in this country?
The experience that I've had so far is been excellent. Like I said, it's eye-opening to the growth that I see here with Northern Kingdom. I just want to see more. You know, and Captain Zephaniah said it the best. You know, you can't. I feel like we're encapsulating so much in such a little time that, you know, we're kind of wondering what's being missed. Or, you know, did we do that? You know, what else can we do? It's a lot of work in such a little time. I just wish we had a lot more time. And going back to what you were asking concerning the young men, make sure you are taking advantage of all the time that you have in these missions. Make sure that you're investing all of your time to the truth while you're in the missions, and just keep your mind focused on what would you tell Christ if he asked you, you know, if you are you complete with the work, or are you sure that you're done with the work, or, you know, what else can you do? Never shortchange the time that you have. Always invest. Ask yourself, what more can you do? You know.
Vamos a ver si el país de México está creyendo en la Biblia como la Biblia dice.
Todo lo que está pasando al pueblo mexicano es bíblico. Dice que íbamos a hacer la cola y no la cabeza, que Él nos iba a prestar a nosotros y nosotros no le íbamos a prestar a Él. Todo esto porque esta es tierra propia. Esta es patria nuestra, y todo lo que está, todas las injusticias de la tierra y todo eso es bíblico, pero eso le iba a pasar al pueblo de Israel. Por eso es que nosotros sabemos que el tal llamado mexicano es de la nación de Israel, de la tribu de Issachar, porque todas estas manifestaciones, estas tribulaciones, estas maldiciones más bien, están sucediendo a nosotros, y en la Biblia se encuentra que le iba a suceder a los hijos del pueblo de Israel, de la nación de Israel. Sí, exactamente, y nuestra gente no está al tanto de que esto nunca va a parar. Aunque entre un gobierno nuevo, mejor que te prometan nuevas cosas, siempre violan los pactos. ¿Por qué? Porque el hombre caucásico, el hombre güero, el gringo, ellos tienen la mano aquí en el gobierno mexicano. Esto nunca va a parar hasta que el pueblo mexicano sepa que ellos son los hijos de la nación de Israel y comencemos a guardar los mandamientos y la fe en Jesucristo. Ese es el verdadero cambio. Sí necesitamos un nuevo gobierno, pero bajo Jesucristo y sus apóstoles, los 144,000.
When it comes to the history of Mexico, is there anything that you've had or read previously that you were meditating on as you were going through this trip? Anything new you learned on this trip that kind of brought a certain scripture to mind as you were going through this whole trip?
No, well, as I was listening to Deacon's interview, it brought to mind Acts 13, when the apostles were fasting and meditating on who they were going to select for the ministry. And they selected Paul, they selected Barnabas, and I think Mark. I forgot the other brother's name, but it just reminded me, and it's like there's the same thing going on, the Acts of the Apostles, when Deacon, you know, he selected myself, Captain Abiel, then you got Officer Cornelius, you got Officer Yamagan, Officer Halez, then you got the new crop of young men coming up. So, you know, that's what came to mind.
Repent now, cause it's very scary. Make a fire is your mortuary. We ain't ordinary like land inhabited and heavenly hosts immaculate. I couldn't fathom it, but I know my God gon' handle it. Eyes in every place.
La punta de su barba, sí, no estamos supuestos a afeitar, a dañar la línea naturalmente que tiene de su barba.
majors watching. Watching, watching, watching. The majors watching. 10 times, riding in the sun. 10 times, 10 times, riding in the sun. 10 times.
We are here in this cathedral that's built on top of an Aztec temple. So our people went from one idol worship to another. Okay, so what do we have here? A bunch of idols. Like the scripture says in Ephraim, in Hosea, Ephraim is joined to idols. Let them alone. So we gotta get our people out of this wicked doctrine of Catholicism. All you see is Caucasian images, white images, Edomite images of false saints. Over there you had a so-called saint, Juan Pablo II, buried in this cathedral. We know that the saints are the Israelites. It's not Esau or so-called white people. All right.
Angels ain't gonna spare nobody. And yes, they know your name. Them angels ain't gonna spare nobody. Nobody. The angels watching. Watching, watching, watching. The angels watching. Watching, watching, watching.
So Captain Zephaniah, Mexico City.
Yes, sir.
I think yesterday we had a good walk and we went and we saw El Templo Mayor.
El Templo Mayor, yes,
and
sir.
we also saw El Catedral,
Mm.
built on top of an Aztec temple. What were your thoughts going through that experience in terms of the history you found out after, the sights you saw during? What were you thinking about?
It was amazing to me to see that the people, they were basically they went from worshiping one idol to another idol. Their own made up idol to their oppressors' made up idol. And it was like, we were like time traveling basically, because you see the ruins and you see the same people that were in those temples sacrificing, going into Esau's temples, basically sacrificing themselves, because you saw they were outside, they were doing quote unquote cleansings, rituals, right, for money. And it reminded me of the movie Apocalypto. When you saw that, they were like prepping the people they were going to sacrifice. They were doing incense and all that, and it was the same thing we saw when we were out there. So, yeah. I'm sorry, my bad, Cap. I want to give this brother directions real quick. Please, after you. So.
Yeah, creativity levels low. Or maybe I just feel low and that's an excuse for me not to create. I feel selfish at times. I get tangled in my issues and forget that outside a whole nation is dying. It seems I got a lot to say when I talk to myself. I guess confession is harder when someone trying to help. Getting lessons from Deacon, spiritual therapy treatment. You way too hard on yourself, he told me he could see it. Realize boxing these feelings is showing signs of weakness. Them thoughts will try to maintain space, show no obedience. The carnal man throw tantrums when I go file a grievance. The dialogue in my mind, man, you wouldn't believe it.
Quisiera que platicáramos, Diácono Joshua, Capitán Sofonías, Capitán Ariel y Oficial Cornelio. Quisiera que nos contaran de las leyes, cómo es que Israel unido en Cristo se quita del pecado. Quisiera que nos platicaran qué es para Israel unido en Cristo el matrimonio, la familia, cómo es que Israel unido en Cristo cuida su cuerpo, porque la Biblia dice que nuestro cuerpo es un templo, sí, es un templo de Dios. Entonces, pues, ¿cómo es que cuidan su templo?
Perfecto. Yo quiero empezar con el matrimonio, porque hay mucha fornicación en el mundo y entre nuestros pueblos también. Y necesitamos enseñar y poner honra otra vez en el matrimonio, ¿ok? No el matrimonio como estamos viviendo juntos, ¿ok? La ley dice, y eso fue costumbre de los hebreos, de las israelitas, que nosotros confirmado todo en contrato, confirmándolo, las papeles del matrimonio también, eso es parte de eso, porque yo sé que una cosa usualmente de muchos latinos es que, sí, esa es mi esposa, ese es mi esposo, pero no tienen los documentos de esas cosas, ¿ok? Eso es muy importante que enseñamos esas cosas también.
A ver, Israel unido en Cristo se casa por el civil y también tiene un matrimonio religioso.
Sí, los dos son igual. Es civil ahora porque estamos bajo del cautiverio. So necesitamos recordarlo con los gobiernos que estamos viviendo abajo, pero en los tiempos donde nosotros teníamos nuestro gobierno, sí, era civil también entre el reino, como lo hacemos, So yo quiero enseñar algo. Hebreos 13 y 4. Cualquier relación que no es entre de matrimonio, la Biblia te enseña que es fornicación, que no es justo, es contra de la ley. So no existe noviazgo que yo puedo, dame un poquito aquí, un poquito allá. Cosa dice one night stand.
Una noche de aventura.
Sí, no, eso no existe entre el pueblo de Israel, Eso es en los caminos del diablo, La Biblia dice que el matrimonio es santo, Sigue.
Este es el libro de Hebreos, capítulo 13, versículo 4. Honrosos sean todos el matrimonio.
En todos el matrimonio, no solamente que, qué bueno que estamos en amor, que vamos a juntar, vamos a empezar una familia. Una familia, sí, esa es la fundación de la iglesia. La iglesia empieza en cada de los miembros casas, Esa es la fundación para crecer su nación fuerte, El base de una nación con poder es la familia, Y enseñando eso y viviendo así. ¿Sigue?
Y el lecho sin mancilla.
Sí, no hay mancilla, porque lo que esto es verdaderamente que está diciendo es que si tú se acuestas con un hombre, o hombre con una mujer, y no es entre el matrimonio, es fornicación, es contra de la ley, es pecado, pero cuando tú lo haces, porque el sexo no es malo, el sexo es alimento para su matrimonio, es necesario, es una forma donde tú puedes acercar a su esposo, a su esposa, y es alimento esa es la diferencia en matrimonio, y siempre del principio del mundo era así, que fue Eva y Adán. Tú no lees que Adán estaba, déjame ver, no me gusta Eva, déjame ver si yo puedo hablar con Eliana, o yo puedo hablar con, Rocío, o cualquier, no. Dios dijo, esta es la mujer para ti y tú lo vas a casar. Y ese es el principio del matrimonio. Hoy en día no queremos hacer esa cosa. Tú estás muy joven para estar casado con alguien. Deja su tiempo, ve qué tú quieres de su vida. Disfruta de su vida y todo eso. Eso no es cierto. Lee del principio.
Honrosos sean todos en matrimonio. Y el lecho sin mancilla.
Sigue.
Pero a los fornicarios,
los que están andando sin matrimonio,
y a los adúlteros, los juzgará Dios.
Los juzgará a Dios. Hay un juicio para esas cosas, Ahora, búscame en Mateo 19. La otra cosa que es, no hay divorcio en la Biblia.
No, claro.
No hay divorcio.
Como tú dices, entendamos, no es que no haya noviazgos, tienes que conocer a tu
eso es
pero
cortejar, eso es cortejar, eso es diferente. Tú no estás acostando con alguien en esos tiempos. Nosotros lo hacemos en el hora ahora, Y puede ser la primera,
fecha.
Una
cita. Sí, puede ser la primera cita, el segundo, la tercera, y ya estamos metiendo en la cama.
No es cierto. Y en este mundo ya está esperado. Después, son 3 citas, ya te toca.
Sí, ya te toca.
Ahí la meter.
Sí. Está esperando eso, Lee esto. En la forma que hay divorcio es para 2 razones y pertenece a la hembra diferente del varón también, ¿ok? Vamos a leer esto primero.
Muy bien.
Mateo capítulo 19, versículo 4. Él respondiendo les dijo, ¿no habéis leído el que los hizo al principio, varón y hembra los hizo?
Ajá. Eso está enseñando que el matrimonio es entre varón y hembra. El mundo, en los gobiernos pueden decir que el matrimonio es hombre y hombre, mujer y mujer. La Biblia dice que no, es hembra y varón, ¿ok? Sigue.
Y dijo, por esto el hombre dejará padre y madre y se unirá a su mujer. Y los dos serán una sola carne. Así que no son ya más dos, sino una sola carne.
Sigue.
Por tanto, lo que Dios juntó, no lo separe el hombre.
Sí, eso no separe, lo Dios juntó. Sigue leyendo, ¿no?
Le dijeron, ¿por qué pues Moisés mandó a dar carta de divorcio?
Ajá, en los tiempos de Moisés había un tiempo donde tú podías hacer divorcio, ¿le? Pero Jesucristo va a explicar, ¿le?
Y repudiarla. Él les dijo, por la dureza de vuestro corazón, Moisés os permitió repudiar a vuestras mujeres.
Sí.
Mas al principio no fue así.
No fue así, pero eso fue por un tiempo el divorcio abajo de Moisés. ¿Sigue?
Y yo os digo que cualquiera que repudia a su mujer, salvo por causa de fornicación.
Esa es la única razón. Si la mujer comete fornicación, no está diciendo si el hombre lo hace. No es cierto que el hombre lo hace tampoco, es pecado. Pero la mujer no puede decir, yo quiero un divorcio porque tú acostaste con esa mujer o la otra, ¿ok? Él no puede divorciar. Eso es lo que dice la Biblia, ¿ok? No es cierto.
No fair.
No, well, no es que es no fair. El hombre no está supuesto a hacer eso.
Claro.
Pero el entendimiento del matrimonio es un misterio. Y necesitas entender, como lees en Efesios, matrimonio es simbólico de la relación de Jesucristo y la iglesia, ¿ok? Y cuando tú entiendes eso, entonces tú vas a ver por qué la ley dice esto, ¿ok? Sigue.
Yo os digo que cualquiera que repudia a su mujer, salvo por causa de fornicación, y se casa con otra, adultera. Y el que se casa con la repudiada, adultera. Le dijeron sus discípulos, si así es la condición del hombre, con su mujer no conviene casarse.
Eso, entendiendo eso, ellos están diciendo, bueno, no conviene que yo me case.
Ana Eliana, acabamos de hacer tu programa aquí en Ciudad de México.
En Anesma TV.
Ajá. ¿Qué aprendiste sobre los israelitas y quiénes son los mexicanos por medio de la Biblia?
Bueno, pues aprendí el mayor conocimiento que me llevo es que el pueblo mexicano es una de las tribus de Israel. Yo en algún momento había leído algo así y por alguna otra referencia, sí sabía que éramos como un pueblo elegido. Además, bueno, pues te digo que tenía yo ahí la referencia del libro de Mormón y demás. Entonces, sí cachaba como esa parte de la historia de por qué llegaron los españoles y por qué nos sojuzgaron tan fácil. ¿Por qué entregamos todo? Porque entregamos nosotros nuestro oro y todo por espejitos, porque estábamos esperando la segunda venida de Jesucristo.
Exacto. Pero fuiste engañada, o fuimos engañados, ¿por quién? Por los conquistadores que vinieron aquí
pues
por medio de la religión, y aprendimos, te confirmamos todo con la Biblia, ¿verdad? Todo lo que tú pensabas de que los mexicanos eran un pueblo elegido, ahora está confirmado, ¿verdad que
claro,
sí?
Claro.
Y una más pregunta, ¿qué color es Jesucristo por medio de la Biblia?
Moreno, dark.
Así es.
Bueno, sí, también, o sea, de hecho
sabía
ya hay como muchas tesis de que Jesucristo no es blanco.
Pero ahora
no
está confirmado
azules.
con la Biblia.
Siempre lo hemos sabido, pero nunca, a ver, cuando leemos la Biblia y hay un montón de cosas que tú dices, ay, no, pues no es cierto, ¿no?
Okay.
Entonces, evidentemente, bueno, ya nos quedó claro también qué es el pecado, que tenemos que seguir las leyes.
Sí.
Y bueno, pues nada más sí hay que expandir más el conocimiento. y pues en lo que podamos ayudar.
Así es. So, muchas gracias, hermana Liana. Fue un
Gracias,
placer.
gracias, capitán.
Okay.
Muchas gracias. Muchas de estas.
Shalom.
Shalom.
El reino del norte. Mi gente sí buscan soluciones para los problemas en el barrio. Mi gente está sufriendo y por eso aquí estamos, dale soluciones. Cristo en la Biblia, mi gente. Problemas lloran, oye, problemas lloran. Escuchen la voz de mi sangre que toda mi gente vota. Tiempo para reconocer que adentro empieza el cambio. Deja toda la mentira y pone Dios primero. Para los mandamientos, amo una a otro. Así a todos sus hijos como amamos a Dios también.
¿Cataleya?
¿Cuál es más suave?
When was the last time you got on one?
It's been a long time.
Cap, it's always interesting. I think you were, if I'm not mistaken, you're one of the first leaders to move international. And we've heard Captain Zephaniah say it, we've heard Deacon Yashua say it, we've heard Bishop say it in classes. There's going to be, at some point, more leaders that have to move internationally. What do you have to say to those men, young men, leaders up and coming that might have to make that move in the future to prepare themselves mentally, physically, spiritually?
Don't be afraid. Get your affairs in order. Get your affairs in order and make the move. All right. I remember it was on Passover. I'll say it. It was on Passover. And here we are. Lord, the power is mighty, all this and that and everything. I'm sitting down. Where the lamb at? Next thing you know, I get Deacon Yashua come on my left side, and he comes and says, "Hey, pack your bags. Bishop wants you to make a move to Tijuana by the end of the year." And I would have rather. I felt as if someone just threw a cold bucket of water on me. And everybody saw the countenance. I can't listen. I wear my heart on my sleeve. I'm trying to get the heart off of my sleeve, but I couldn't hide it. I just. It was stuck. And in that moment, I just started, calculating, all right, what do I need to do? All right, the end of my lease is coming in 2 months. So do I really need to renew my lease? No. Is there anything else that's holding me back here? No. All right, so I'm going to have to start making the moves, and within a 2-3 months time, I was already out, no recon, no like, hey guys, what's going on? Nothing. Just, it is what it is. But luckily, there were brothers that were, all praise to the Most High. There were brothers who lived in TJ already, started making calls over there. Hey, where's the best place to live? And, I had a really good support system with them. All praise to the Most High for that. We had Cornelius, of course, he had ideas of where to stay. So the brothers really took care of me, and it is what it is. Now it's a year, that I've been out in TJ. A lot of growth, a lot of experience, and now we're here in Mexico City, waiting to see, if we can open a sanctuary here.
Caminar, si quieres trotar, también puede trotar, ¿vale? Para detener un poquito para atrás, hasta que tú sientes que él ya se detuvo.
Okay.
Si ves que se está haciendo para atrás, el freno va para adelante.
Okay.
Para que no te lo vayas a cortar ni no. Ok, y listo, pues él se llama
Oreos. Oreos. ¿Hembra o varón? Oreos, como está.
¿Es tu caballo?
Sí.
It's her horse.
Oh, sí.
El otro.
¿Quién mandaste de guía?
El güey YouTube.
Yo. Oh, you filming? Shalom, shalom. Most High Christ bless. We out here. We're about to see some of the pyramids of the Aztecas. All right. We decided to instead of do it on foot, take advantage. We're gonna be mixing it up between horse and ATV, and we're gonna go see the grounds here of this pyramid setup. Now, how do we pronounce it? Teotihuacan? Teotihuacan. All right. So this is probably about a little over an hour outside of Mexico City. We're gonna get some footage here and give you some history and show you some references biblically of what we're doing here. So there's a historic site. The pyramids is one of the main things that we can look at as far as how they were built, how they were structured. That shows that the remnants of the 12 tribes were here. As we know in the scriptures, the Israelites built the pyramids for the Egyptians. And there's something to be said about when you come to these countries in Central and South America and you find similar structures, maybe not in exact appearance, but in form, in measurement, in positioning, and all of that. And we'll discuss that in more detail when we get to stop. So, hey, we ready, bro? We ready?
What you got to say, Cap? Praise to the Most High, man. It's the first time I've been on a horse since I was like 9 years old in Pelham Parkway in the Bronx. But it's for a good cause. We're going to see the temple pyramids here in Mexico City. All praise to the Most High. Thank you, Booster Club.
Horses.
Argentina, horses.
Camina caballo.
No, la algo muy diferente. La mexica y la teotihuacana. Porque de aquí.
Oh, sí, sí. Yo lo voy a tomar. Mira.
Bicicleta, ¿no?
Esa pesadez, porque no da
¡Claro que sí! ¡Sí, señor!
When you're out there looking at the camp, looking at the different, I would say, maybe looks of the people or the different cultures that we've experienced. You know, every country that we've been to has been a little bit different. You know, Colombia, Ecuador had more of a Southern Kingdom look. You know, when you go to Guatemala and Mexico, it had more of that indigenous look.
Right.
It's anything interesting that you see there in terms of how Israel's a speckled bird and everywhere we go, it's that we're teaching at different people.
Yeah, the people here in Mexico City, is like each person has their own individual look. You know, you see a lot of rockers, gothics, homosexuals, piercings all over the place, tattoos. So like I said, it's the system of Babylon all throughout our people here in Latin America. But yeah, we can't really pinpoint one specific look on the people. You know, it's a broad range.
What were your thoughts when we actually went into the cathedral yesterday, and you saw the different idols in there and people praying to them, and the history that the same stones they built the church on were the same stones they destroyed the temple, the ancient Aztec temple?
Well, the first scripture that came to mind, or the first thought that came to mind is when the scriptures in Hosea says, Ephraim is given to idols, leave them alone. You know, all you see throughout that church, cathedral, whatever, is nothing but idols, Edomite statues of Caesar Borgias. They even had a quote-unquote saint that was buried there. And people going there, they crossing themselves, kissing and throwing money and buying candles. So that's what went through my mind. You know, we gotta
we got to get our people out of that idol worship. You know, we got to try to reach them somehow.
Yes, sir. Here's the last question, Cap. You've been on all the trips from way back with DR and Cuba.
Right.
A lot of people have seen maybe the videos, camp videos, documentaries. Is there anything that they'll never be able to understand looking at the video that you would want them to know on these trips? Any trials, tribulations, tough parts, good parts that you've been through that maybe it's hard to relay to people unless they've been?
Hard to relate to the people unless they've been here. I guess the magnitude of the work that has to be done, you know, because we're only here for a short period of time, and we try to maximize, like Bishop says, maximize the work in a short amount of time, something like that he says. So, you know, we're here for a week. You think it's a long time, but it's not enough. It goes by fast, and, you know, the people that we do reach, that people that do want to congregate or learn more, you know, they ask us, where's the school? Where can we learn? And it's like a void that needs to be filled. And that's why you see bishops and the deacons, the spirit of the Most High moved them to put Captain Abiel in Tijuana because it's necessary. So eventually, you know, we're going to have, once the spirit start coming here to Mexico City, we're going to have to move brothers here. So that's the things that you don't see, the magnitude of the work that needs to be done. Until you out here, you see how big and how magnanimous, like Bishop Yawasop likes to say, the work is when you got to come out here and establish the churches.
Yes, sir. Anything you'd like to say specifically just about this trip in general in Mexico City before we close it?
About this trip and about the work, we need more brothers, Northern Kingdom, to rise up. You know, we all, including myself, we all got to come out of our shells. We all got to, you know, grow in this truth. Just put your best foot forward, you know, stay in the spirit. Come out of the wickedness that surrounds us, social media, you know, any distractions that you have, you know, you just got to focus on the mission, focus on yourself, because we do need brothers, you know, we do need the Northern Kingdom to rise up and do this work. You know, the people are hungry. They want to see brothers that look like them, that speak the language that they speak. You know, Judah is the head tribe, and they the ones that the Most High raised first. But now is our time to step up and wake up the 10 tribes.
La señora le da una. Es que
You getting in the cave?
You getting in the cave, bro?
So we came for it.
Yeah.
You ever been one?
Vamos a pedir permiso para acá.
Oh, okay.
Deja la chelita.
A ver, chicos, you gotta be careful.
Al quinto se da la vuelta.
Aquí.
Aquí, de este lado. Acá de este lado, chicos. Hey, chicos, acá con Dani. De este lado, amigos. Pasen para acá. Miren, sí. Bienvenidos. Lo que tenemos aquí es una cueva ancestral milenaria. Aquí pernoctaban, habitaban. Recuerden que eran antiguos espacios ceremoniales y eran casas habitación para los antiguos teotihuacanos. ¿Vale? Les voy a hablar de lo que es el guardián Mictlanticutli, que está allá atrás. Es el guardián de los 7 niveles del Mictlán. ¿Vale? Él contaba con un guardián, como lo vieron allá arriba. Decían que en la leyenda el perro era el guardián para el paso del inframundo, con Mictlanticutli. En los 7 niveles, si el perro no llegase a morir y llegara a morir nada más el dueño, lo enterraban vivo junto con él. El perro, aparte de que era un gran guardián del inframundo, lo podían enterrar vivo, ¿no? Y aparte lo ocupaban para, ¿qué creen? Hacían pozole con él. Aparte de la carne humana que tenían antecedentes que hacían pozole, lo hacían también con el xoloscuincle o en barbacoa. El perro lo engordaban con maíz. Por eso el perro lo representa
presentan algunas veces con una mazorca en el hocico y está panzón. Y hay dos razas de perro cholescuincle, la alta, la chaparra. Ajá. Entonces, ese perro era muy buena, apreciada la carne por los antiguos mexicas y teotihuacanos. Aparte de que era demasiado rica y suave, no sé si la han probado, no tengan el gusto, está buenísima.
Están robando los perros y se moría el dueño primero, ¿los momificaban?
No, vivos,
Sí,
vivos.
Okay,
porque tenía la de que con los ojos abiertos podrían guiar mejor. Así decían que muertos, vivos los enterraban y se morían con en la tierra. Miren, y este es el gran Mictlantecutli, te vamos a hacer otras representaciones allá. Otra cosa, aquí en los 7 niveles, eran como los 7 niveles del purgatorio, ¿se han oído hablar? De Dante. Dante, en los anillos, ajá. Era parecido el inframundo o lo que era Cancerbero. ¿Eso qué? Vamos chicos, vamos de este lado. Son 3 niveles. No sé si sienten la temperatura. En el tercer nivel es demasiado caliente. Vamos. Aguas con la cabeza nada más, chicos.
Watch your heads.
¿Ya? Miren chicos, vengan, en lo que pasa, miren, tenemos gran repertorio de lo que era la cultura teotihuacana referente a la gastronomía. Si recuerdan, el petate, el metate, los meclapiles, lo que es el molcajete junto con el mortero, eran para diferentes cosas. En el de allá se podía hacer lo que era la mezcolanza para el maíz, el nixtamal, que después de eso pues se molía, lo utilizaban también para el mole, grandes variedades de moler, chile, pastas, etcétera. Y aquí pues famosísimo, si han probado alguna vez la salsa con chinicuiles, escamoles, gusanos de maguey, ¿alguna vez han probado alguna? Yo sí. Proviene del maguey, el pulque, y hacían lo que eran las salsas a base de pulque y le llamaban salsa borracha. En esa gran alimentación era proveedor el maguey. ¿Conocen el maguey? La planta del cactus donde sacaban varias cosas, era un gran proveedor. Por eso se dice que la obsidiana y el maguey eran gran proveedores, porque encontraban lo que era proteína, bebidas, comida, y de ahí con el mesote, y donde salía lo que era la flor del maguey, que se llama ¿cómo se llama la flor del maguey? ¿Dónde estaba? En este momento se me fue de la mente. El quiote, de ahí también la flor se la comían, y el gran mesote lo utilizaban para hacer sus cabañas. De ahí también sacaban el papiro del maguey. Imagínate el papel, el ixtle, el hilo. El ixtle es el hilo donde utilizaban para cinturones, para ropa, etcétera. Aparte del aguamiel y el pulque, ya con la fermentación, pues utilizaban el pulque y se daban unas borracheras que ni veas. Pero la obsidiana era igual gran proveedora, porque con eso estudiaban astronomía, podrían ver el sol directamente sin lastimarse los ojos, estudiar los astros. Y aparte de que era buenísima, aquí la cultura teotihuacana proveía mucho de la obsidiana a todo el Valle de México, desde lo que era Chile, Mesoamérica, desde abajo del sur, lo que eran los mayas, los aztecas, hasta los incas, porque hacían intercambios, trueques, y había jadeíta, había hasta la lapislázuli de Chile. O sea, han encontrado residuos de esas piedras de por allá. Venían por la obsidiana y por los braseros tipo teatro. Los braseros tipo teatro eran unas representaciones anfiteatras que hacían para las personas que iban o morían y se las llevaban a otro punto. Esas piezas grandísimas eran a base de arcilla, barro, como le quieran llamar, y hacían la representación del muerto en vida, y le llamaban tipo teatro porque la representación del humano venía cubierto con partes de enfrente, ya sea la ideología que ellos tuvieran, y los mandaban a hacer. Eran tan importantes que los armaban como Lego. ¿Se acuerdan de las figuras de los juguetes de Lego? Se los llevaban y allá los armaban para que no se pudieran romper. Y la obsidiana, tener un cacho de obsidiana era un filo infinito, dagas, pedernales, puntas de flecha, etcétera, para todo eso, y lo ocupaban para todo. Entonces era muy importante la obsidiana. Bueno, y la gastronomía, pues se diga. Miren, ¿recuerdan? Bueno, espero les haya gustado la explicación y puedas ser privilegiado para subir al canal. Vengan chicos, claro que sí. Con cuidado. Miren.
Why are you ducking down?
Les voy a hablar de Huehueteotl. Huehueteotl está conjugado con lo que es el dios del viento, Ejecatl, porque hacía una renovación. Estas cuevas eran importantes para entrar en meditación y hacer una transición espiritual. No, ten. Una transición espiritual. Cuando descendían en la cueva, hacían una transición espiritual y se dice que salían renovados. Por eso, en los antiguos temazcales, ¿alguien ha estado en algún temazcal? ¿Conoce el temazcal? ¿El baño sauna? ¿Alguien? Sí, bueno, ese baño es terapéutico, es corporal y espiritual, ¿sí? En ese baño se hace un baño a base de hierbas, cánticos. Ese baño era propiciamente para la gente que iba a dar a luz, para las personas que iban a parir, así se dice, normalmente las que dan a luz. ¿Por qué? Porque les facilitaba a la hora de salir el niño en un parto normal. También era exclusivo para los guerreros. Los guerreros, que eran las personas que se introducían al temazcal, eran ¿para qué? Para evitar prejuicios sobre la sociedad. Un guerrero debía ser fuerte, amenazante, poderoso. Entonces, llorar enfrente de la gente, desahogarse su ser espiritual y todo lo que tenía dentro, no era bien visto. Tenían que entrar al temazcal, llorar, cantar, sacar todo lo que llevaban dentro y salir renovados. Es una representación ahora de las cuevas, ahora el temazcal. Por eso se dice que entras, renuevas con lo que es el dios viejo del fuego, que era Huehueteotl, y con lo que es Ejecatl, que es la transición entre las dos, que era conjugado con la serpiente emplumada, porque también se supone que era un dragón y que podía volar, y era la transición entre las dos deidades. Quetzalcóatl. ¿Vale, chicos?
Apocalipse 1:14. Jesucristo es moreno. Jesucristo no es blanco. La prueba está en la Biblia. No se tribu para mis hermanos. Jesucristo es moreno.
Presento, mi nombre es Moisés, soy originario de aquí del Valle de Teotihuacán. Vamos a conocer un poquito de lo que trabajaban mis ancestros, generaciones antepasadas, acerca de el mismo maguey, que es el nombre popular que recibe esta planta. Su nombre científico o botánico también es agave. Además de ello, también vamos a conocer un poquito de lo que es el trabajo con el diamante negro. Así es como se le apoda a la obsidiana, por el valor que llega a tener. Pero bueno, vámonos por partes. Primero, esa magnífica planta que les comentaba, incluso se vuelve famosa por una canción de Vicente Fernández que dice: grabé en la penca del maguey tu nombre. De ahí muchas personas le toman un romanticismo del hecho de poder escribir el nombre suyo y el de su pareja sobre la planta. Pero la misma planta te va a dar lo que es un plástico natural, en el cual culturas antiguas llegaban a escribir sus códices, algunos pergaminos. Primero, pues vamos a darle coherencia a esta misma canción con este textil. Retirando lo que son las espinas, podemos empezar a sacar esa hoja natural. Hoy en día se utiliza en la gastronomía mexicana en un platillo que lleva el mismo nombre de la hoja, michiote. Toca la textura que tiene. Bambú. Wax. That's amazing. Michiote. Wow. Otro beneficio que vamos a poder extraer es en la parte exterior. Esto de aquí, muy parecido al aloe vera. Este es un aloe de maguey, utilizado como el primer shampoo. Este también es un antiséptico natural. Si tú te llegas a quemar, a tener una herida, como una cortada, pues bueno, eso funciona como un cicatrizante para poder untarlo. Otro beneficio, la aguja. La aguja era utilizada para la elaboración de tatuajes, perforaciones e incluso para la caza y la pesca. Además, la mujer teotihuacana hoy en día le da otro uso. Si te descuidas, le pican la pompa y con eso te controlan, así que cuidado. Y algo súper impresionante es que si realizamos un corte alrededor de esa misma punta aguja, vamos a poder obtener el primer hilo con el que se fabricaron algunos vestuarios de mis antepasados. Ese hilo que es apodado como ishcle. Es aquí, va algo bastante fuerte, bastante resistente. ¿Vale? Siente la textura para que lo puedas comparar.
Es bastante fuerte, sí.
Bastante fuerte. Que incluso podemos llegarlo a teñir con diferentes tipos de flores o plantas. Un ejemplo, esos de aquí que se llaman geranios.
Ah, sí. Voy a ponerle color, ¿no?
Y así tenemos listo para poder realizar nuestros diferentes tipos de textiles, ¿vale? Que se les quede grabado Issachar. Incluso si visitan la Basílica de Guadalupe, uno de los lugares turísticos más llamativos que tiene México, vamos a encontrar el manto o el ayuno griego, fabricado en un 100% de ese mismo textil, que incluso si lo combinamos con algunos otros materiales como por ejemplo la cal, vamos a cambiarle el pH a esta flor de manera que tome ciertos tonos incluso azulados. ¿Vale? Eso es algo impresionante y que igual se puede llegar a sacar junto con la misma aguja para tener preparada esa aguja para poder coser.
Para tejer.
Exactamente.
Eso no tiene que tener el que tiene el hoyo para ponerle.
Ya no hay que desgastarnos la visa, ya tenemos preparado. Mira. Ahora, esa planta también te va a producir un licor. Y este se llama pulque. ¿Alguna vez han escuchado hablar del pulque? Cuidado porque aquí el pulque es el culpable de la sobrepoblación mexicana. Se la apoda como la bebida de San Andrés. Donde lo toman 2, te amanecen 3. Es un afrodisíaco natural que se obtiene una vez que se fermenta el néctar natural de la planta. Este de aquí. Este se llama aguamiel y es el jugo que te produce de manera natural la planta. Se produce una vez que la planta tiene la maduración entre 8 a 10 años. Pasando esa misma, ahora sí está preparado para caparse y rasparse para poder obtener ese néctar. ¿Ok? Eso es un poquito de lo que te platico de la planta. La máquina va a cambiar en el detallismo.
27,500 pesos.
Más that comes out about el tamaño. Y esto tarda cuestión de horas. No, medio, ¿verdad? Pero aquí tenemos la cultura teotihuacana, ¿vale?
Las calaveras de cristal, ¿esas de dónde se ha escuchado de las calaveras de cristal?
Se utilizaba antiguamente para el estudio astrológico y también se decía que era un espejo para poder ver a través de él tu alma. Hoy en día lo podemos utilizar para ver los diferentes fenómenos, como por ejemplo el que hubo hace prácticamente 7 meses. Véanse de este lado.
Oh, there it is.
See it? They would watch the eclipse with that.
Oh. Primer Crónicas 12:32. Los hijos de Issachar tenían el conocimiento de los tiempos. Por eso tenemos muy conocido, a veces conocido el calendario maya, pero muchos lo conocen por el calendario azteca. Pero los aztecas, los mexicas, conquistaron hasta allá. A lo que hasta Nicaragua, ¿verdad? Sí. Hasta esas áreas de Nicaragua. Y por eso es de que nosotros teníamos, como me estaba explicando aquí, mi amigo aquí, esto lo usamos para estudiar el sol. Si tú te fijas, no sé, por dentro de la cámara, se puede mirar el sol y no te queman los ojos. Teníamos todo ese entendimiento.
De los tiempos.
De los tiempos, los hijos de Issachar, que son hoy en día los mexicanos. Un gustazo conocerlos, chingada madre. Chingada madre.
Es que tú no entiendes tu puesto como mujer. Dios te puso por mi ayuda, pero eso no quiere ser. Te la pasas tú peleando, mi puesto quieres tener. Si no cambias tu pensar, ahí está la puerta, lárgate. Es que tú no entiendes tu puesto como mujer. Dios te puso por mi ayuda, pero eso no quiere ser. Te la pasas tú peleando, mi puesto quieres tener. Si no cambias tu pensar, ahí está la puerta, lárgate. Ya es tiempo que esto acabe, no has cambiado, tú bien sabes. No me plancha el uniforme, nuestra vida está en desorden. Yo ya estoy cansado, ya no quiero pelearme, solo quiero que te calles. Es cuando tú me caes bien, el jefe en el trabajo ya me tiene hasta arriba. Yo no encuentro paz, solo angustia hallo en cada esquina. Si no te arrepientes, si cambias esa forma de ser,
Hey, Shalom Israel, Deacon Joshua here. Got the captains with me, the officers. We're here at Teotihuacan. This site has two pyramids. They don't like to necessarily call them pyramids technicality because pyramids end in a point, all right? And that makes sense when you look at the word. But when you look at the structure as it goes up, they just basically flatten it out, right? We understand that the Israelites were in Egypt building the original pyramids. And one thing that you usually find from historians and anthropologists is that the positions of these things align very much similar, pointing towards different celestial objects, just like they did in Egypt. So very similar trajectories when it comes to that. Who was it? Was it Glenn Beck that did something on that? And of course, the reason he focused on that is that he's a Mormon, and the Mormons do believe that the indigenous from here are of the 12 tribes of Israel. But in any event, we're here in the background. We got the larger one. This is the Pyramid of the Sun, they call it. Okay, Pirámide del Sol. And in this whole valley, there was a whole civilization living here, right? One of the things that the tour guide was telling us is that we presume that it was all Aztecas, but within that they had subdivisions, okay? Just like you see like in Apocalypto. And he said this was like a different sect. It wasn't really Azteca, okay? One thing he mentioned, and we're gonna get the shots of that. It's in our forefront right now, of the what they call the feminine. It's the Pyramid of the Moon, right? And it got me just kind of thinking when the scripture speaks about a woman shall surpass a man, talking about feminism. A lot of times we bring that up to modern times and the present iterations of it. But it seems like we always had an issue. If you think about it from the beginning with Adam, we have a propensity to kind of dumb ourselves down, or rather subject ourselves to women. You think about it even in Paul's time. Why did he have to talk about that in Corinthians, right? Why did that have to be mentioned in Old Testament times? Why was that mentioned in the beginning? And all throughout the scriptures, it talks about the order, because us as a people have a propensity to put the women up higher than they should be. And I think it's in our spirits to kind of worship that feminine. And he said they were very focused on the feminine aspect. So even though the sun pyramid was larger, they reverenced this one here, which we'll get some footage of in a little bit, the one of the moon. And it just got me thinking a lot, like, you know, thinking about it biblically and where we stand at. Even some of the other stuff with death. You weren't there when I initially said it, but you asked so why they worship death so much. And it just got me to thinking with the understanding of how that death is necessary before you can obtain the kingdom, understanding the prophecy of Christ to come and his sacrifice for us. Of course, they would have an affinity to those type of things, but obviously it's a zeal of the Lord, but not according to knowledge. So, Lord's will, we're going to get some more footage on the other side of this. Captains, officers, you want to add anything to what I said?
Sure.
No? All right, we're going to move on over then. All right? Oh, well, you look at the layout of this, like, it wasn't just for worship. I forgot which book I was reading. I think it was the standard book, American Holocaust. And he talks about that, then it was Tenochtitlan that they had went to. But in very similar way, all this was like a flea market. So you do have some vendors and things like that now. But back then, and it was readily organized. They said that in Europe they had never seen anything like it. They had it set up almost like in streets. So like the vendors set it up almost like streets, and they would be selling, you know, like a whole aisle was for like meats, a whole nother aisle was for like soaps, and they were impressed by all this cleanliness and things like that. So I'm not saying necessarily maybe this close, maybe it was that revered. But when you look at the structure of the way these valleys were, it was also a place of like commerce for them, where they would come together. Not unlike when Christ was dealing with the temple and he saw people selling in the temple, right? So a lot of times though, you look at those things and you see that they bring it up to this.
Right. Some of these areas where we're sitting at right now, certain areas were filled with water. So the Aztecs were never looking up like that at the celestial stars and the moon and the sun. They used to be able to keep track of the movements by actually flooding certain areas. They used to look down at the water and the reflection. That's how they used to keep track. Aquí estamos en Tenochtitlan. ¿ok? Teotihuacán, o conocido como Tenochtitlán. Estamos en las pirámides. De atrás de nosotros se encuentra la pirámide de la luna, el aspecto femenino para el imperio mexica o conocido azteca. ¿Cómo es que nosotros llegamos a la conclusión bíblica y también histórica que los tal llamados, o más bien mal llamados mexicanos, son una de las 10 tribus de la gran nación de Israel? La tribu es Issachar.
Sí.
Ahora, vamos a mostrar un libro escrito por un hombre caucásico, que bien sabemos que todo el mundo alaba al hombre caucásico. Vamos a ver lo que los hombres caucásicos dicen de ustedes, tal llamados mexicanos. Este libro se llama El misterio de las pirámides mexicanas, ¿verdad? Escrito por Peter Tompkins. Vamos a ir a la página 79. Vamos a ver lo que dice.
En un manuscrito en idioma quiche, en el año de 1554, varios indígenas mayas.
¿Varios qué?
Indígenas mayas.
Acuérdense, los aztecas dominaron hasta los mayas. Todo esto era un imperio, ¿ok? Sigue hasta Nicaragua. Sigue leyendo.
Dijeron al padre Dionisio José Chonay, el intérprete, lo que sigue. Se supone que las tres grandes naciones,
los mayas, los incas y los aztecas o mexicas,
quiches mencionadas en particular, son descendientes de las 10 tribus del reino de Israel.
¿Sí escucharon lo que dijo el hombre blanco? Ustedes están llamados mexicanos, son del reino de Israel, de la tribu de Issachar. ¿Qué más dice?
A las que Salmanasar redujo a perpetua esclavitud.
Salmanasar, si ustedes leen el cuarto libro de Esdras, capítulo 13, del 40 al 46, habla del rey.
Tenemos permiso.
Del rey.
¿Por qué está interrumpiendo?
¿Tienen su papel? Sí, soy trabajador y si quiero ahorita lo saco a todos.
Keep recording.
Para eso está aquí la Guardia Nacional.
No va a aceptar
A ver, ¿por qué no?
Los mexicanos.
No. Enséñame tu permiso. Quiero leerlo y que venga a ser tuyo. No puedo creer que el Instituto de Arqueología esto no es un permiso, caballero.
¿Para la cámara?
No estoy hablando de la cámara, estoy hablando de la acción de grabar y lo que están explicando, caballeros. El sitio tiene un contexto histórico completamente bien trazado a través del Instituto de Arqueología.
Escúchame.
Y ustedes, en su contenido, que seguramente va para alguna red social o algún propósito,
es para nuestra propia iglesia. Es para nuestra congregación.
¿Es una religión? Bueno,
sí. ¿No?
¿Qué es? ¿Qué es?
Somos una congregación.
Precisamente por eso no puedo permitir que desvirtúen el contexto arqueológico de un país.
Yo no estoy hablando.
Tiene una identidad muy bien marcada.
¿Cómo te llamas?
Antonio Martínez Olvera.
Salúdame. Vamos a comenzar de nuevo. Me llamo Cornelio, mucho gusto.
Mucho gusto.
Ahora, no estamos hablando nada de la arquitectura.
No, caballero, pero
estoy hablando. Yo soy mexicano. Escúchame. Yo soy mexicano. Tú no me vas a decir a mí que yo no puedo decir de dónde viene mi gente.
Claro que sí.
Yo sé de dónde viene mi gente.
Línea de arqueología y de antropología.
No, yo puedo dar mi opinión.
Trabajador del instituto, estoy facultado para detener este tipo de acción.
¿No puedo dar mi opinión?
Sí, claro que la puedes,
entonces pero necesitas una opinión.
No, porque tienes el basamento principal.
Pero no estamos hablando de las pirámides.
Un contraste de tu contenido con un sitio
yo no mencioné,
federal.
Yo no
Entonces,
mencioné.
Necesito un escrito, si es que lo quieren hacer, perfecto, pero tienen que acudir a la administración Puerta 1 y que el director de antropología, Diego Prieto, autorice este tipo de contenido.
¿Listo?
Sí.
Ok. ¿Qué es lo que no podemos mencionar?
La historia, el relato, de dónde vienen los pueblos, todo esto. Tú estás dando a conocer un libro con un autor.
¿Qué miras
Eso no es aquí.
Yo sé que no es aquí. Entonces, ¿cuál es el problema?
Que estás hablando de...
Yo estoy hablando de este libro, ¿no?
Ahora,
no de
hiciste un comentario de que esta es parte de la cultura de no sé dónde, que abarca el imperio azteca hasta no sé cuál. Caballeros, los voy a invitar a que den esta sesión por terminada. Si quieren, ¿mande? Si no sé dónde, ¿por qué tú estás hablando entonces? ¿Cómo? Tú estás diciendo que no sé dónde. Tú no sabes que nosotros estamos hablando. Pero están ocupando algunas 2 o 3 palabras y ahora tú estás discutiendo la cosa. Yo lo que necesito es que ya pase seguridad porque no puedo permitir que delante del basamento principal graben contenido que no está certificado por
No
el
estamos
instituto.
mencionando este.
Ahora bien,
Aquí todo el mundo
por
está
reglamento,
grabando.
caballeros, no puedo.
Todo el mundo está grabando.
Claro que sí.
Hablando de
pero
historia.
estamos hablando de videos personales y esto ya es para un alcance mayor.
Es un video personal.
Ahora bien,
No, hermano, un momento.
a ver, compártanme qué congregación son por lo menos. Es que ni siquiera
Somos una congregación cristiana.
¿Cuál es el nombre de la congregación? Yo sé.
Se llama Israel Unido en Cristo.
Ok, vamos a hacer esto. Tienen. ¿Cuánto te faltaba para terminar esto? Pero necesito que te me muevas de este frente.
2 minutos.
Puedes pasar al lateral, a un lateral. 2 minutos. Continúen el contenido, después editan, pero no los puedo de verdad dejar estar al frente. Es un contraste muy grande con los basamentos principales.
Ahora,
ya sea Pirámide del Sol, el área de Ciudadela. Y se los pido así, tienen el tiempo ya muy medido porque van a empezar ya a bajar los compañeros a hacer el desalojo.
Correcto.
Los van a ver, les van a pedir el permiso y al no contar con el permiso en automático no pueden grabar.
Tú eres mexicano, ¿verdad?
Claro que sí.
Ok. Ahora, si tus padres te invulgaron a ti una historia de tu gente,
la conozco.
Es personal. ¿verdad?
Tengo estudios arqueológicos.
Ok, yo
¿vale?
también, yo también. Mis padres a mí personalmente me enseñaron una historia. Yo como mexicano, yo puedo divulgar lo que a mí me han enseñado.
Claro que sí.
Ok, gracias.
¿Vale?
Así es.
Shalom Israel, I'm Captain Zephaniah. I'm here with Deacon Joshua, Captain Abiel, Officer Cornelius, and Officer Halez. We're in front of the actual Aztec ruins or temples where they sacrificed human flesh that the scriptures talk about in Hosea 8:13. Deacon Joshua, if you can give me the honor.
Yes, Hosea 8:13. They sacrifice flesh for the sacrifices of mine offerings.
So the scriptures is telling us that the tribe of Issachar sacrificed human flesh for the sacrifices of his offering. Read on.
But the Lord accepteth them not.
The Most High did not accept those human sacrifices. Why? Because that's not what he wanted. But our people was in the midst of idolatry. So these temples here, these ruins that you see here, was actual human sacrifices made here of our people. You see that in the movie Apocalypto. Read.
Now will he remember their iniquity and visit their sins.
Now will he remember their sins, remember their iniquity and visit their sins. So the Most High remembered the iniquity of the tribe of Issachar, who are the so-called Mexicans today. Read.
They shall return to Egypt.
They shall return to what?
To Egypt.
They shall return to Egypt, which is the house of bondage. It's synonymous with the house of bondage. Read.
For Israel hath forgotten his maker.
Israel, the tribe of Issachar, and all 12 tribes.
Northern kingdom too.
All praises.
And buildeth temples.
And buildeth what?
And buildeth temples.
Like you see behind us, the temple of the moon. And on the forefront, you see the temple of the sun. All throughout here was sacrifices made to idols. Read.
And Judah have multiplied fenced cities.
Judah hath multiplied fenced cities. Read.
But I will send a fire upon his cities, and it shall devour the palaces thereof.
And it shall devour the palaces thereof. These remain, but when you go to the main city of Mexico City, you see churches, the Catholic Church built their idol temples over the idol temples of the Aztecs, of the so-called Mexicans, the tribe of Issachar. So what does that say again?
For Israel hath forgotten his maker and buildeth temples, and Judah have multiplied fenced cities. But I will send a fire upon his cities.
So the Most High sent a fire by the hand of the so-called white men, the conquistadors, which is the Amalek conquistadors, the nation of Esau, the nation of Edom. They sent the fire and destroyed a lot of the temples, and these are the few that remain. So we are here on the mission. All praise to the Most High that we got to see these temples and document this so that you can see that what the tribe of Issachar did here in Mexico coincides with what the scriptures say.
Hey, and one thing I want to point out, I'm going to start from verse 11. It says, because Ephraim have made many altars to sing. Altars shall be unto him to sing. Ephraim, sometimes it's talking about specifically the tribe, but most of the time, that's when you're bunching all the northern kingdom together. And when you look at this in a broad sense, when it talks about Ephraim, you're gonna have you have Aztecs, you have Incas, and you have Mayas. So all throughout, there were pyramids, there were monuments, there were different types of things built. These are the most famous because these are the largest that were preserved. Right. But there are many that have yet to be discovered. There are things that have not been dug up, all right? And maybe never will, right?
There's some in the land of Puerto Rico.
Yes.
Dominican Republic, Cuba.
Yes. And when it talks about altars to sin, it's not just the pyramids. Look at Gad and all the different gods, the wind god, the spirit bear, and all these different things. Here we talk about the sun and the moon were the grandest, but we saw he was talking about the guardians of the 7 levels and all the different deities that they have, right? And that's indicative across all Northern Kingdom tribes and even some Southern Kingdom. Look at Levi, look at Benji as well, the so-called Jamaicans, and even remnants of Judah and the things that they worship as well. And then he says in verse 12, I've written to him the great things of my law, but they were counted as a strange thing, meaning they perverted these things. It's not like they made these things up. What they did is they took these customs of sacrifice that they were accustomed to. Because remember, when they made the migration over here, they were still under the old covenant of sacrificial law, right? What happened was, in the process of time, as the elders that came here with the good intentions passed, the newer generations rose up. And even though when you read in 2 Ezra 13 that they wanted to leave the multitude of the heathen so that they wouldn't sin anymore, those customs were already inbred in the youth that were with them, right? It's almost like in reverse in Egypt. The older people didn't make it, but the younger did because they never experienced what was there in Egypt. But what you had in reverse here was they still had the youth that were amongst them that were accustomed to what? Babylonian customs, Assyrian customs, even Persian customs when they were granted that liberty under Cyrus. And those things here, once those elders died, nothing was going to constrain them from doing those things. So they went ahead and they created a perversion of what was the law. Like I was talking about, I'm not sure what sequence the final product of these videos are going to be in, but there was a moment I was talking about. It's almost like you see a familiarity with the laws, but it was perverted because it wasn't according to knowledge. Like their love of death, the way they were pushed to the feminine. They worshiped the moon, but they didn't understand why. They worshiped the sun, but the sun should have been representation of the light, that's Christ. And they just didn't understand those things. And it wound up being a perversion to them. So that's why when the verse 12 here, can you unlock that for me real quick? All right? And let it slide. Read verse 12.
Verse 12, I have written to him the great things of my law.
Right, so we had those things. Remember, we knew about this place when we came over here. We understood there was a place where never mankind dwelt. You have the history of the Olmecs, which predates the Aztecs, which were the voyages that under Solomon's rule, Israel was making over here. So it wasn't like something was just divinely revealed to them when they got their freedom under Cyrus. What they knew that there was a place where it was, and they knew how to get there. Some amongst them, chiefly the Issacharites. Right? Go ahead, come on.
But they were counted as a strange thing.
But they were counted as a strange thing, what the meaning that they perverted them. They used them, they created the altars, they built the temples, all right? All that knowledge came from what you read in Exodus and Leviticus, the cubits, the lengths, the different things like that. That's where they had that understanding from. It was in their spirit to do that. The scripture talks about the talents. When you get to the New Testament, some of those things are still in our people. In my opinion, most of Northern Kingdom is known for being diligent workers with their hands, but especially Issachar and the prophecies with them, because they're the most famous for building these pyramids. Now they're not building pyramids, but what they're handling. They can put their hand to almost anything, right? That's a talent that the Lord gave their tribe, all right, to move in that direction. And that's what you see, the result of those things here, no matter what anybody's going to tell you, because we're going to get some of that footage in there of how the guy interrupted us. So we got to do that. Even if we got to overlay, like a voiceover over that stuff, we're going to talk about that. And you'll see that the spirits here in this place, they're still present. Just like we had Asmodeus in Guatemala, we had a damn demon jump up here for what he heard, because he wanted us to tell the lie of the power of the sun, the power of the moon. Right. And we were telling them their true nationality, and it was a vexation of spirit to him. He tried to shut us down and get us out of here, right? But y'all see the footage when that stuff come out, right? All right? Y'all got anything else you want to add to that? All right, Israel, that would say shalom.
Shalom.
Pertaining to the comments on the TV show, I could say I did not filter any that were negative. Every single one that was passed was asking more questions of the topic at and wanting to know more about where we're at.
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned prior Guatemala, how you read the spirit and the reaction of the people that kind of gauge where we go next. We were going to go to Guatemala. Quest comes, we go to Colombia. Spirit said. Based on how Mexico responded.
Mm-hmm.
How do you gauge where you put your time, where you take your men?
Well, we always got to look at where we have roots, right? Where we have a foundation. And I think something in my spirit still keeps telling me Guatemala has so much potential. But the problem with Guatemala is that we don't have anybody there, right? So it gets a little more challenging. The people there, every time we break camp, it's like they don't want us to leave. Like, you know, usually the camp is dead and then you're breaking camp and it's kind of, you know, and it's like, no, people are waiting there and they're like, well, when you're coming back? And that's not the only place. It's happened other places where we've been. I think overall here, the fact that we have a few families here and some willing spirits in these brothers, especially in the brother Hosea that we saw here, I think that this is some place that we have to be able to come back and make sure that we water, because there is a seed here and we have to be able to help in building that. So, you know, as far as I'm concerned, this is another one where we're targeting to potentially get a school or at least a weekly rental space, depending on the economics of it, where we can go ahead and start letting those families be able to fellowship and invite the people in that they'll be doing with the teachings on the street for that as well. So I think part of it has to do with identifying places by where we have roots, and then also where the potential is for something bigger to be done. So, you know, I think we need to get people back here sooner than later. I think we need to maybe look into some more of this programming, because like I said, that was one of the more interactive ones we've had from the audience, and in a positive way in doing so. And I think this is one of those places where, because it's such a modern city, it reminded me a lot of New York in a lot of ways, with just cultural elements of Mexican culture. The social media aspect, the media aspect can be very powerful here, in addition to the grassroots stuff that we do in the community and the teaching and things like that. So this has kind of moved up in regards to that. Like I said, Guatemala's hot from the spirit, how they're thirsty and there. Here we actually have a foundation that we need to build on and follow up.
Yes, sir. You mentioned the TV show several times. You know, I think we jumped to TV shows. The first time was Canal Cartagena in Colombia, and to a major TV show. We jumped to Guatevisión. We've had WOW TV in Mexico, the one that you're referring to, and tomorrow we have another one that has a large reach. How do you perceive the difference between radio shows that we may have done, trips that we had prior to TV shows, and not just any TV show, but sometimes some of the larger networks in countries as we've been to newer trips have come about? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm laughing because I'm thinking of how, like, we went to one of the ones in Ecuador and it was like in somebody's apartment. The little dog came out, the kids were out in their diapers and whatnot. You know, that was more podcast style, but those could be pretty powerful too if they got a good audience and a good reach. Some of that involves, you know, like I said, the economics of these trips, right? So, you know, I'm not gonna miss an opportunity to plug the Booster Club, and, you know, for those of us to see the importance of that. There's something in Bishop Nathaniel's spirit also that he's been really trying to get us to get aggressive with the fundraising for these trips. You know, as we see the day approaching, we have to remember that our salvation's nearer than we believe, and we're commanded to go out, and we have to reach as much as the diaspora as we can while life lasts. So I think these forums, it's not just getting here. Sometimes, you know, we need some funding to be able to access some of these programs as well, so that we can go ahead and get out on those airwaves. I think dollar for dollar, you get a lot of leverage based on that viewership, you know. Our job is simply to, scriptures is prophesied to the wind, meaning get that thing out there, you know. We were talking about airwaves and frequencies on the bus the other day. That's basically kind of like the wind, right? And we know the word don't go out void. So we have to be able to leverage those opportunities when we come places, because you maximize that exposure. And we know that none of that stuff falls on deaf ears. Whether you're always moved by the word, whether you're for or against it, you're moved in some manner with it, and we need to continue on in that manner, and I think try to look for a more upper tier of type of exposure, and really in these places again with that social media that has large followings and things like that. Those are the things that get viral. Those are the things that catch fire, and that they stay on there for a long time. You know, the effects of what we did today, we might not even this week we might not even really see some of those results till later, based on what we put out on social media and on the airwaves and things like that. So
So Deacon, we kind of touched a lot of things. We've mentioned Guatemala, we've mentioned Ecuador, we're in Mexico City. A lot of the time, there might be a good group of men that have traveled with you throughout these different countries. What do you see in terms of growth in the spirit of the team that you've been leading? What do you see in terms of things you'd like to see more of for the trips to come? We've been, maybe 5 to 8 countries this year, and that's with one team. I know you mentioned in the future we might need to send multiple teams. What is the bridge between today and your vision tomorrow?
Everything's biblical based, what we do. And the way that we've gone out into these places, I think we've still yet to attain to what it was like when the disciples were going out and teaching. And they spent long seasons, and that's what I mean by that. I think the evolution of what we're doing is going to be twofold. We're going to have men that go out and, do more than a week, 2 weeks in these places, right? Because as we build these schools, we want to kind of accelerate the process, right? As we grow, as the understanding grows, as we get nearer to that day, we can't necessarily wait like we did, years ago, and we would wait till 2 families and 3 families. So we got to kind of keep adding fuel, or water to the seeds that are planted, so to speak. So I think the evolution of what we're seeing is that these teams that we're building with, they're picking up a lot of valuable experience on how we move, how we operate, what we teach, how to read the vibe and the spirit of the people. And they're gonna have to maybe try to see and open up the time to, spend a month, maybe stretch that to 2 months or 3 months. I think in some countries, like in the islands, in the Caribbean, the English speaking, for Southern Kingdom, we're just starting to do things like that where we have men that are able to do 2 months, 3 months, and we're sending them on these type of things. We're just starting to do things like that where we can do things like that in Africa. I think where we're sending brothers a month or 2 months if we can. I think you're gonna see that, and I think these brothers that have been on this team with us on these initial trips, they're gonna be the ones that are gonna be that foundation for something like that. And then I think the other side of it is we need more. Right? We need to send out multiple teams, right? I want to be able to have multiple trips going on at one time when we do these things. So, now we go out with 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 men, and it works out good because we're able to split our efforts and we can maximize the time during the day where we'll have camps going on, where we'll have programs going on when we're doing these things. We need to be able to have these other men who have yet to be able to take advantage of these opportunities, whether it be for, their growth in the spirit hasn't reached that point yet where they can travel and minister that way, or, we just haven't gotten around to rotating them in to us doing these travels where, we could be here in Mexico and we could have another team in Peru doing exactly what we're doing now. And that's when you're going to start to see a lot of leverage with what we're doing. And then as far as the team, I think there's something spiritual about when you go and you have success in the spirit with a certain group of men, and then it's sustained and you see that it's repeatable, like it's not a one-off type of thing. There's something to be said, and there's something of note of that. Remember, the Lord's judgment's like a circle. There's nothing new under the sun. For those who understand how it works as far as regeneration and things like that in the spirit, for many of us, I'm not going to say each and every brother that's been on these teams with us, this ain't our first go around that we've done these things together, all right? And it shows and it manifests itself when we go out on these missions and we're able to have that type of good success. All praise to the Most High. I cannot say that we have any type of friction or errors or issues as we've gone out on that stuff. And I think that's a powerful sign. We talk a lot about the 11th hour, but I think now more than ever before, you're kind of seeing that going, and I don't think there's going to be no backwards traction in this when it comes to this side of the ministry dealing with the Spanish-speaking countries and the Northern Kingdom. I think that you're going to see more growth, you're going to see more empowerment, and you're going to be able to see more of these men rise up for us to be able to accomplish these things that I just spoke about.
Yes, sir. I think it was a class, Deacon, or whether it was a Sabbath class or a men's conference. I remember you mentioning a while back, when you came into the truth, you found purpose. How much does that feeling of purpose grow when you go from one country of 20 million and you're the first time that we're touching down and you're leading the mission? We go to another country of 22 million. We go to another island of 15 million and you're the vanguard leading the men to these countries of breaking ground. How does that augment your sense of purpose?
I don't even think of it in all the ways that you said it. I just, I think of how Romans says we provide our reasonable service, right? There's also, gosh, I forget, I believe it's in Luke where it talks about the servant and he comes to set the table. And I think we even spoke about it on one of the programs this day. And he says, you've done what's expected of you, right? You feast, you enjoy after. And that's really a similitude for the kingdom of heaven, right? Like, this isn't the time for us to rest. Not to say we won't build houses, we won't enjoy things. I mean, this is joyful, like, not to say that, you can't go and take a little vacation with your family and do something, but I mean, these are the type of things that I look forward to. Like, this is fun. Like, it doesn't feel like responsibility. It doesn't feel like something where I have to consciously think I must do this. It gets to a point where it just becomes automatic. You don't do it. I know some people do it because they say, well, I don't want to be judged, or, Paul would say he felt like he was so guilty for everything he did against his people that he does it. I'm at a point where it's my identity. I don't know who I would be without what we're doing, and I move with that. Like, you've ever had a job and it just don't feel right. It don't feel like the right fit. That's not what this is. This is it just works. It just makes sense. Like, I feel like what's the saying they say in the world? Do what you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This don't feel like work. Yes, we get tired. Yes, the days are long. Yes, you miss family, you miss your congregations even that you're with and things like that. But this is something that you just know in your spirit. So as far as that growth, I think continually there's always that strengthening of that purpose. Paul talks about we establish the law, right? And when you think about that, establish means to make something. I used to think, just colloquially, you think that it means you're making something new when you say you establish something. But what it really means is you're making something firmer. There's nothing new that we're doing here. We're just shoring it up of what's supposed to be done. And every time you get another brother that's in the right spirit to do that and move in that way, it's its own reward. Right? What you see, the results of it, the multiplication, the men trying to covet earnestly those gifts that they find in what we're doing. All those things are faith building things, I mean, hey, just today, Officer Cornelio was breaking down the tribe of Issachar for the program as we were closing out. And he's showing two images of the Aztecs that show the crucifixion of Christ. And they show him as a black man on top of that, And I said it and it sounded like I was joking, but it's like, and I've seen those images before, but it's like every time we do it, it's like, I guess it's like music or a band, and when everybody hits the notes, it just makes you feel right, And I think every time we do these things, that's the feeling that I have. So that purpose is driven. Once that fire's under you, it don't take motivation, it don't take nothing else. Like I said, it's its own reward. Seeing what we're doing and the efforts that we're putting out.
Yes, sir. Deacon Joshua from the tribe of Ephraim, the head tribe of the Northern Kingdom.
Once upon a time, we all under the authority of Christ, all right? It's from the tribe of Judah. So,
yes, sir, yes.
But yes, once upon a time, the head tribe of the Northern Kingdom. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Anything that you would like to say to the tribe of Issachar as they continue to grow and as you see the spirit of Mexico City as we sign off?
Yeah, I gotta say, I was thinking it at several points during the show today and during the week. Not so much from the perspective of numbers. The numbers really don't mean anything. There's more sealed of the 144 than we realize and we're aware. That's why I say that the elements of we're closer than what we realize is powerful. But I don't know, man. There's a lot of Mexicans, man, that gotta get this word. There's such a prominent tribe as far as the world is concerned. From awareness perspective, right? Almost everybody that's not Latino thinks that all Latinos are Mexican. So the tribe of Issachar need to wake up. They need to put their pride of what they see and how developed they are. That's strengthened by their relationship with the United States and their standing in the world. They're in their Independence Weekend that they're celebrating now, and with that comes a lot of misplaced pride. And you need to be able to see the forest for the trees, like they say, And that's up to us in some regard, but we need our Mexican brothers to get in the right spirit, to repent, and I believe that they have a big role to play as an example for the Northern Kingdom tribes, and some people wonder when you speak about that head tribe, and how come I don't see more Ephraimites per se? Well, I've gone over that in different ways, right? Branches went over the wall. Not all Ephraim's going to be your typical, prototypical Puerto Rican. We have remnants of Ephraim in Africa that don't look, like Carlos or Jose, right? They look more like the brothers and sisters from that region. But I think there's something powerful that needs to happen with the tribe of Issachar, because you see a lot of Issachar in our body and a lot of the other camps as well. And it's because of a familiarity that the world at large has of them as a so-called Latin people. And I think if you start to see droves of them repenting in large, you're gonna see all the other tribes come out of the woodwork and take their proper place in what we're doing and the efforts that we're moving forward with.
Deacon, it's always a pleasure to recap from these meetings. Thank you for your time, and it's been great.
All right, shalom, shalom, most high Christ bless. Support the Booster Club, we need it. We need to be able to keep pushing these things to the four corners of the earth, all right? Till we die or till Christ return, all right? Shalom, Israel.